Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good evening, everyone. Today is our 77 Monday Sutta discussion, and it's been a long time that we've been continuing with this Monday Sutta discussion series. And I have chosen a sutta called Paṭhamavalāhaka Sutta for today's discussion, and the topic is going to be four people similar to clouds. And because we have to talk Paṭhamavalāhaka Sutta with Valāhaka Sutta, that means they are next to each other, so we're going to be looking at the both suttas, but the main context of the sutta is very similar, but the examples that have been used in the context in the two suttas are two different but the same simile. Okay, so there are four people similar to clouds, so we have to first look at what are the clouds, and how we can see the similar characteristics of clouds or thunderheads with the people, with the four people. Let me read first in Pali. This is appears in Anguttara Nikaya and in the Chatukka Nipada, the fourth section, which is called Valāhaka Vagga. Valāhaka basically means cloud. So the first sutta, Ekang samayam bhagavā sāvatyang viharati jetavani anātha pindikassa ārāme. So it is very clear that we talk about the background story of the sutta. So I have heard at one time the Buddha was staying near Savatthi in Jetas Grove, Anathapindika's monastery. Tatra ko bhagava bhikkhu amantesi bhikkhavūti bhadanteti te bhikkhu bhagavato pachasosum bhagava etadabocha. There the Buddha addressed the mendicants, monks, and the monks replied, Venerable Sir, they replied, the Buddha said this, Chattaro me bhikkhave valāhaka katame chattaro. Mendicants or monks, there are these four kinds of clouds. What four? So Valāhaka means cloud. Gajjita no vasita, vasita no gajjita, neva gajjita no vasita, gajjita cha vasita cha, ime ko bhikkave chattaro valāhaka. Gajjita no vasita. Gajjita means thundering. So basically what it means is the first type of cloud is Gajjita no vasita. There is a cloud where you can see it thunders but does not rain. Okay, so there is a thundering in that cloud, but there is no rain even though it is thundering. The second cloud is Vasita no Gajjita. One rains but doesn't thunder. Okay, so this cloud, in this cloud, what we can see is that you can see the raining, but without a thunder, without thundering. The third cloud, Neva Gajjita no Vasita. There's a cloud which is neither thunders nor rains. So there you can see the both. There's no thundering, no raining. The fourth cloud, Gajjitacha Vasitacha. In that cloud we can see the both rain as well as the thundering. Okay. Now Buddha compares these four clouds to people, four kinds of people. Eva meva ko bhikkhave chattaro me valāhakūpamā puggala santo sangvijamana lokasmi katame chattaro. These are the four kinds of clouds, or in other words we call it thunderheads. In the same way, these four people similar to clouds are found in the world. What four? So now you understand what are the specific characteristics of the cloud. So the first cloud, there is thundering but no raining. The second one, there is raining but no thundering. The third one, there is neither raining nor thundering. The fourth one, there is both raining and thundering. Now let's take a look at what kind of people are meant by these four clouds. Katancha bhikkhave puggalo gajjita hoti no vassita. And how does a person thunder but not rain? Ida bhikkhave ekaccho puggalo bhasita hoti no katta. So this is the basic interpretation. So it is when a person is a talker, not a doer. So there's someone who always talks, brags, pontificates, right? But there is no action as much as that talk is concerned, that speech is concerned. So that talking part, like bragging, pontificating part is illustrated by the thundering. So not to do a part. So non-action or action is illustrated by raining. So when it comes to the first person, it is the first cloud. That means there is a person who is a talker but not a doer. Sayatapi evanko bhikkhave puggalo gajjita hoti no vasita. Sayatapi so bhikkhave valāhako gajjita no vasita tatupamaham bhikkhave imam puggalang vadama. So this is a person. There are a lot of people who only talk but no action. So we have to be people of action, not just people of words. I mean, it's good that we can talk about what we can do, but if you're gonna be a mere person who only talk but there's no action followed by, you're gonna be falling into this particular first category of the cloud. Second, katancha bhikkhave puggalo vasita hoti no gajjita. So the second person is, how does a person rain but not thunder? Ida bhikkhave ekaccho puggalo katta hoti no bhasita. That means it's when a person is a doer but not a talker. There are people who do a lot of good things silently, secretly. They don't want to brag, they don't want to talk that I am doing this, I am doing that, I have these backgrounds, I have money, I have educational qualifications, I have done this. They don't talk anything. They just keep their mouth silent, but they're going to be continuing their works. They are the second cloud, right? It's raining, but no thundering, no bragging, no pontificating, no etc. etc. Third cloud and what it means by, in the context of a person. Katancha bhikkhave puggalo neva gajjita hoti no vasita. How does a person both thunder and rain? Sorry, how does a person neither thunder nor rain? Ida bhikkhave ekaccho puggalo neva bhasita hoti no katta. It is when a person is neither a talker nor a doer. There are people who even don't brag, and there's no doing. So they are nothing when it comes to the development, the progress of oneself and society. They don't talk. They neither talk nor do anything, right? They don't have the both parts. So that's the cloud called, there's a cloud which is neither thunders nor rains. The fourth person, katancha bhikkhave puggalo gajjitacha hoti vasitacha. Ida bhikkhave ekaccho puggalo bhasitacha hoti kattacha. And how does a person both thunder and rain? So how does a person both thunder and rain? It's when a person is both a talker and a doer. That is when there is someone who is, I don't say it's bragging, talking plus doing what is required, what is meant by that person's speech, right? I think I'm not encouraging you to think about the fourth option, but you just need to understand different people in society. There are people who talk but no action. There are people who act upon the things, but there is no talk about the actions. There are people who are neither talking nor acting upon those things. And there are people who are both talking and acting upon the things that they are supposed to be. So these are the 4 kinds of people that Buddha teaches us in the way of 4 clouds. So there are 4 clouds when it comes to people. So we need to understand different people. Sometimes we may not be able to change somebody, but we just need to understand who they are, right? So that's a good thing. And as I told you at the beginning, we need to look at the second sutta. Now this is the Paṭhamavalāhaka Sutta. That means the first, first cloud sutta, and we're gonna look at the second cloud sutta too. Otherwise, we won't be able to understand the real meaning of the sutta. Dutiya Valāhaka Sutta, which is next to this sutta. Cattaro mi bhikkave valāhaka. In the same way, there are 4 clouds. The same clouds, Gajjatano Vasita is the first one. That means there's a cloud which has thunder as well as raining. Vasitano Gajjata, there's a cloud which has raining but no thundering, no thunder. The third cloud, Neva Gajjata, no Vasita, there is a cloud which has neither thunder no rain. Gajjatacha Vasitacha, there is a cloud which has both thunder and raining. Same clouds that we know in the first sutta. But the comparison in this sutta is different, unlikely the first one. Eva mevako bhikkave chattaro me valāhakūpamā puggala santo samvijamana lokasmin katame chattaru. So Buddha teaches us, is saying to us that there are people who are similar to these same clouds. Katancha bhikkave puggalo gajjita hoti no vasita. So who is the person who only talk but no action? Ida bhikkave ekaccho puggalo dhammam pariyapunati suttan geyyang veyyakaranam gātāng udānang iti buttakan jātakam abbhuta dhammam vedallam. So idang dukkhanti yatha bhutang nappacānāti ayang dukkha samudayoti yatha bhutang nappacānāti ayang dukkha nirodhoti yatha bhutang nappacānāti ayang dukkha nirodha gāmini patipadāti yatha bhutang nappacānāti evaṁ ko bhikkave puggalo gajjata hoti no vasita. Okay. Now the person that Buddha talks in this context has a broader meaning of a particular person. Now let's take a look at who is this person. There is the case where a person has mastered the Dhamma, dialogues, narratives of mixed prose and verse, explanations, verses, spontaneous exclamations, quotations, birth stories, amazing events, questions and answer sessions, yet he or she does not discern as it actually is present that this is dukkha and this is the cause of the dukkha, this is the elimination of the dukkha or eradication of the dukkha, and this is the path which is leading to the cessation of the dukkha. So which basically means there is someone who learns a lot of Tipitaka based things like Dhamma and Vinaya or Sutta Vinaya Abhidhamma, but that person doesn't try to discern, try to practice Vipassana to attain what you call Panya. That is what we understand by knowing the Four Noble Truths. That means this is the kind of person that Buddha talks about by saying there is a thunder but no rain. So thunder is compared to learning of the Dhamma, right? So the person who is learning a lot of Dhamma but there is no practice. Now the practice, now people might ask, so how do you differentiate the practice between discerning of the Four Noble Truths and the learning of the Dhamma? I would say discerning of the Four Noble Truths is the most important thing, because you know, regardless of how much you offer dana, how often you take precepts and do other punya-based, merit-based stuff, but if you are lacking in the panya, that means the vipassana perspective, then you are in trouble. So that's a big problem. That's why here Buddha alludes to the first cloud. There is thunder but no raining. That means the person who studies a lot, who studies Tipitaka a lot, but does not try to discern the Four Noble Truths. So that means there is no rain, but there is thunder. Second person, Katancha bhikkave puggalo vasita hoti no gajjita. Ida bhikkave ekaccho puggalo neva dhammam pariyapunati. Suttang geyyam veyakaranam gatang udanam iti buttakam, so and so forth. Now what it means is, there is a person who discerns, who practices vipassana to attain panya, that means nibbana, but there is no lot of reading of Sutta Vinaya Abhidhamma, right? So Buddha says there is rain. So rain is the practice. The rain is the discernment of the Four Noble Truths, right? So she has no thundering part. So thundering part is learning a lot of Sutta Vinaya Abhidhamma. Okay. Third, let's go to third person. Katancha bhikkave puggalo neva gajjita hoti no vasita. Ida bhikkave ekaccho puggalo dhammang na pariyapunati. Suttang geyyam veyakaranam gatang udanam iti buttakam jatakam abbhuta dhammang vedallam. So idang dukkhanti yata bhutang nappajanati. Now the third person is neither learning the Tipitaka, Sutta Vinaya Abhidhamma, no discerning the Four Noble Truths. So this is the third person. That's a cloud too, right? There are clouds which have no what do you call, thunder as well as rain. Interesting, huh? There are people who don't study Tipitaka as well as not trying to discern the Four Noble Truths. Let's go to the third person. Sorry, the fourth person. Katancha bhikkave puggalo gajjitacha hoti vasitacha. Ida bhikkave ekaccho puggalo dhammam pariyapunati. Suttang geyyam veyakaranam gatang udanam iti buttakam jatakam abbhuta dhammam vedallam. So these, these 9, I think I talked, each of these 9 last Monday, because this is a classification which was done based on the literary style of the Tipitaka. Now, Tipitaka the usage called Tipitaka was coming to existence after the third convocation, like around that time. So, but Buddha used simply Dhamma and Vinaya, as well as the 9, what you call Navanga Sattu Sasana, which means he used 9, different ways to look at the Tipitaka, like how would I say, once again, what they are like. Sutta means basically dialogues, so the Geya is narratives of mixed prose and verse, like a Champu style, and Vyakarana means explanations, Gata means verses, Udana means spontaneous exclamations, where you can remember when the Buddha, when the Bodhisattva was just became the Buddha, he said, Aneka jati sansarang sandavisang anibbisang gahakarakang gavisantu dukkha jati punang gahakaraka dittosi punagehana kahasi sabbati pasuka bhagga gahakutang visankitang visankara gatan chittang tanhanang kaimaja. So this is one of the demos, one of the demos spontaneous exclamations. So if you also look at Theragata and Therigata, you can also see there are a lot of spontaneous exclamations made by Arhants. Now, if I can remember one section, one fragment of the stanzas in the Theragata, Devocha Vasati, Devocha Galagalayati. Now, one Arhan is looking at how the rain rains and how it flows through one of the streamlet there. So the rain rains and rain flows smoothly. See how interestingly, how beautifully the Arahant felt the experience, but it is called in a different sense. Even though they felt happy about the particular phenomenon or phenomena, they were not having passionate delight. Now we call it passion-free delight is what they experience. Now for you, people like you, you go to enjoy. In different ways. Maybe you go for camping, you go for hiking. So you want to enjoy like in a sensual context. But when it comes to Arahants, they never enjoy with sensuality. What they do is they delight without sensuality, without sensual perspective. Very interesting. We call it passion-free delight, right? Interesting. So spontaneous explanation is what we call by udana, and there are udanas given by the Buddha, Arahants, and so on and so forth. Itivuttaka means quotations, and there is a separate book called Itivuttaka in the Khuddaka Nikaya. Jataka means birth stories of the Bodhisattva. Abhuta Dhamma means amazing events where you can see amazing events, I don't say miraculous, I would say, marvelous, amazing events that happen with the Buddha. And Vedalla means questions and answer sessions. There were a lot of question and answer sessions that were, happened between the Buddha and other contemporary, disciples and monks, nuns. So all those sections are included in the, what you call by Vedalla. So this is a literary classification that was done at the Buddha time. So Buddha used it. So what Buddha is saying is that learning of the Dhamma and Vinaya means learning these 9 sections. So when it comes to the third person, Katancha bhikkave puggalo neva gajjata hoti no vasita. So this person does not neither studies the Dhamma Vinaya, no try to discern the Four Noble Truths. So she has nothing when it comes to those 2 important sections. The fourth person is Katancha bhikkave puggalo gajjatacha hoti vasitacha. This person is both learning the Tipitaka, I would say Navanga Sattusasana, 9 sections of the Buddha's Dhamma Vinaya, as well as try to discern the Four Noble Truths. Now, Dhamma friends, you may understand what are the 2 contexts where Buddha used the 4 clouds. So in one context we studied in the first sutta, Buddha was talking about somebody who talks as well as who acts on what he talks or she talks. So it's pretty much integrity, like you talks about something and whether you're gonna execute of what you talk, or whether you're gonna change what you talk. So that's the first context. When it comes to the second context, it's about somebody who is learning Dhamma and then discerning the Four Noble Truths. So there are people who only learn the Dhamma, but there is no discernment of the Four Noble Truths. And there are people who only discern the Dhamma, the Four Noble Truths, but there is no learning of the Dhamma. There are people who neither learns, neither learns Dhamma, nor discern the Four Noble Truths. There are people who are both learning the Dhamma as well as discerning the Four Noble Truths. I think that's what I think very important, because we need to learn the Dhamma. It doesn't matter how much you know, because there is a saying in the Dhammapada, Bahum piche sahitam bhasamano natakkaru hoti narupamatto. It doesn't matter how much you know in the Dhamma and Vinaya. What matters to you is that whether you are able to put that knowledge into action as a practice. So the practice is basically discerning the Four Noble Truths, because without the Four Noble Truths, our learning will not benefit us in any ways. Remember the monk called, what's his name? I had to think about. I think his name was Kottila. Kottila. He was a normal, like a worldling monk, but who was a very erudite, very learned monk. He's very well-read monk who can say anything. I mean, from Sutta Pitaka, Vinaya Pitaka, Abhidhamma Pitaka. He's a scholar. But what happened? One day, when he came to see the Buddha, Buddha said, you know what? Your knowledge is nothing, because you are not trying to practice meditation. You don't practice Vipassana. You don't practice, the meditative things that you need to, practice to cross the samsara, because you're still under the Mara. Because unless you are not trying to, meditate based on your learning, you are not going anywhere. And then what happened? The same day, he left the temple in search of a senior monk in another temple. And that senior monk told Kottila, the monk Kottila, you know what, I can instruct you for meditation. So he passed him on to another monk. So this way he was passed into 7 more monks, and he was ended up with a small monk, like 7 years old, and Arahant. So he was a 7 years old monk, but he was an Arahant. So he met a small monk, like I wouldn't say a novice, I would say a 7 years old, an Arahant. And then what happened? That 7 years old little monk, an Arahant, because he was an Arahant, it doesn't matter how old are you, it doesn't matter whether you cross the samsara or not, right? That 7 years old young monk, a very small monk, who was an Arahant, taught him for meditation, and he was able to become an Arahant. Now think about, knowledge is nothing, but you need knowledge. We need knowledge. It might depend on different individuals, but the most important thing is to practice meditation to cross the samsara. If any one of you not practicing Vipassana to attain Panya, in other words, we call it by Nibbana, I don't think your knowledge has anything, to mean to anybody. So, because there are a lot of teachings, like a lot of people nowadays, people can be intellectually vulnerable, can learn Dhamma, but what if you pause a bit and then think about, okay, how can I practice what I already learned? Am I practicing what I already learned? Do you normally think that way? I've been already, listening to many monks, and I've been reading many books. I've been keeping up with many videos. But have I practiced the Dhamma to the same extent that I've been watching Dhamma? Or do I just put all that Dhamma into my knowledge? And do I just fill my brain or whatever memory with that knowledge? So that's very interesting to think about. That's why I'm telling, discerning or practicing Vipassana is very important. Because if you practice Vipassana, that means you have the most authentic, the most important teaching from the learning. Otherwise, if you merely learn this and that, and then spending time just by learning, just as how somebody in the secular sciences learning something, I don't think you are making any progress in your spiritual journey. Okay, folks, so I want to talk a few other things, in addition to these things, to talk about what we have to understand from these 2 suttas, especially about the 4 clouds and the 8 kinds of people, according to this sutta, in other couple contexts. The first thing is, if you look at the context in the first cloud sutta, you can see the people who talk but not act upon the things that they talk. So I feel like there is a cheating, there is a deceptive nature, like there is a deception, there is a swindling, there's a cheating with those people who may promise to you and then they get changed. So that's something we want to touch upon. And I have done couple talks about cheating, cheating, swindling, deception in the past 2 years, and I will post a link after this talk so you can watch those talks whenever you are free. So I'm not getting into those all the details today, but I want to talk about why we want to follow a practice of integrity, why we are not supposed to be deceptive, why we are not supposed to cheat other people, why we are not supposed to swindle other people. Okay, so if you look at Paṭhamavalāhaka Sutta, which is a very pretty basic, simple sutta. I mean, the sutta, one of the suttas that you've been almost like reading every day, you can see there are different skillful habits that a wise person needs to cultivate on a daily basis. One of the two of the skillful habits are ujucha and sujucha, called moral uprightness and honesty. Now the thing when it comes to ujucha and sujucha is very interesting, because when you say uju, we talk about something more than the normal uprightness. Now when you are upright in your body, so you are like this, keeping your body straight, but when it comes to moral uprightness, that's something interesting, because that means whenever you practice your spirituality, compassion, loving kindness, altruistic joy, equanimity, do you have any conditionalities? Do you act upon those divine abodes, what you call illimitables, upon some conditionalities? Now when you practice compassion, do you get attached to your loved ones more than the rest of the people, or do you just equally try to be compassionate towards everybody? When you practice loving kindness, you're gonna think about, okay, I'm gonna practice metta to my people more than the other people, right? So that means you have conditionalities. You are your what do you call your metta, your karuna, your mudita, your upekka, they all are conditional upon other things. So that means your spirituality is not upright. So in the Paṭhamavalāhaka Sutta, when you say uju, that means your spirituality is very straight, very upright. So try to practice your spirituality evenly and not getting stuck with prejudices and other stuff like that. Okay, so I mean that talks about things about your uprightness or integrity. And when it comes to sujucha, which means honesty is very interesting. Trust. So if we don't have trust, I don't think we can do anything, almost anything. Now when it comes to family members, spouses, teachers, parents, students, anybody, there should be a trust. If the trust is broken, I don't think you can mend it very easily, right? Because it's kind of a mental construct about people. So that's why I'm telling, when it comes to integrity, which you talk about in the first context of the Valāhaka Suttas, integrity, which has non-cheating, non-swindling, integrity issues, it's very important to talk about how can we stay integral in our practice, both in the secular life as well as in the spiritual life. The second thing is why we can see there are people who only want to talk, but there is no action. We have to study about it. Now there are people who only want to talk a lot, and I can do this, I can do that, I will be doing this. And we know one of the friends in the Singhalavada Sutta, her name is what do you call? Vachiparama. He's a second bad friend. Vachiparama person is giving lip service to other people. Lip service means if that person is asked by a friend, can I borrow some money, or can I get something? You know what? If you had come yesterday, I could have given to you. So she's that bad friend who is doing the lip services is treating that friend who is in need with the past. If the same person is coming, another day, and the person who has lip service will say in different other ways too, can I borrow something? You know what? Today I won't have, but in 2-3 months ahead, I will be having the same thing. So I will be able to give it to you. So a friend who is giving lip service. So that's why there are people who wanted to brag or pontificate, just say things without any responsibility. I think they are the people who wanted to like keep or maintain kind of an identity that they at a time that they can, or they could be the people who are really cheating other people. So we have to sort of understand these two types of people. And if there are people who I would say do not fall into either groups, I would say that they are the people who really need instructions, advices from the good people. So that's something interesting to understand. When we talk about this integrity, people need to be integral in their actions as well as their words. I would like to remind you about the Buddha. So Buddha was identified in a name called, in a kind of not like a name, like a definition called Yathavadi Tathakari. So Buddha is acting upon how he speaks, how he talks. So, and Yatha Kari Tathavadi. So his actions are almost in conformity of his words, and his words are in conformity with his actions. So they are pretty similar. So we should be able to create our life with this evenness in both actions and words, actions to words, words to actions. So people will trust us. People will think this person is really nice, and she will not get changed. So that's a very good impression. So we have to give that impression to other people to trust us, so that we are not swindling, cheating other people. Are there different people that have been identified, recognized by the Buddha? Yes. And Buddha says in, what's the sutta? I think it was Kukkuravati Sutta. And he says, Puggala Vematata, which means, there are different dispositions, characters, temperaments of different people. And we know in commentaries like in the Visuddhimagga, there are 6 main temperaments: Raga character, Dosa character, Moha character, Saddha character, Buddhi character, and Vitakka character. We call it temperaments. Now, Raga temperament, Dosa temperament, Moha temperament, Saddha temperament, Buddhi temperament, and Vitakka temperament. Okay, so Raga temperament is somebody who is overly passionate, who has a lot of lobha, who has a lot of raga, who has a lot of passions, who always gets to like other people, other things. So they are in trouble in getting attached to other people. Dosa temperament person is always angry at people and other things. So even at a small thing they get angry. They can't control their temper. Moha temperament is somebody who is always disillusioned, who can get confused, who can get messed up by a small thing, because they have no clarity in their mind. They are always wavering, and then they are not settle-minded. Saddha temperament person is overly faithful. I would say that person has a lot of saddha, faith. But this faith is not the faith that we know in other religions. The faith, as I told you in the Abhidhamma lessons, faith in the Buddhism means confidence in the kusala. So if we don't have a confidence in kusala, we won't be able to practice. We won't be executing the practice too. So saddha means faith, confidence in the wholesomeness, skillful activities. So basically, somebody who is overly confident in skillful activities. And in order to make that happen, somebody may need objects. Even though you know that you really are confident about skillfulness, so you need some objects. Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha could be the objects. Buddhi temperaments means somebody who is overly intellectual. They are overly intellectual, and they are not intellectual to a certain extent. They are over intellectual, which is not good at some points. Who is always rationalizing. And the sixth temperament is Vitakka temperament, which means somebody who is always ruminating, can make a decision, always like, oh, let me think about, or let me take few other weeks, let me take an year, let me decide upon different things, I want to think, and take a lot of time, So that's pretty time consuming. So Vitakka character temperament means somebody who is always ruminating, who can make a decision, who can arrive at a conclusion. So there are 6 temperaments according to commentaries. But folks, you need to keep in mind, there are people who may have a double temperament. Somebody may have raga dosa together. There may be somebody who may have triple temperament. I would say somebody may have raga dosa moha, 3 temperaments in that person. Somebody may have more than 3 or 4. So we have to understand these temperaments and then act upon accordingly. So I'm talking about different temperaments based on in a perspective where we need to understand why people can be different, why we need to understand different individuals when it comes to integrity of different people. Another area that we need to understand is self-identification. Now, integrity is something that reminds us to do a self-review. So if I now say, for instance, me, now when I think about my integrity, I need to do a self-review about myself, like a self-investigation about myself. Am I upright in my spirituality? Am I upright in my, am I honest enough? So these are the things that I have to question by myself, I have to self-question, so that I will be able to find out this integrity when it comes to me and when it comes to other people. So integrity is both influencing oneself and the other people too. So there are people who try to swindle, cheat other people, but they never know that they are both swindling, cheating oneself and the other people, right? Because if we understand the body that we have is something that we borrow, we rent it, because when we die we have to leave it, which means if we're creating a different world by cheating, swindling other people, that means we are not only deceiving, cheating, swindling other people, but also we are cheating oneself. So that's something interesting to think about, because it's very important for our self identification when it comes to integrity. Okay, what can we do to cultivate integrity and the rest of the things that are really with integrity practice is sila. So sila is a good practice, and according to what I talk a few weeks ago, you had to practice Sutta Jnana first, Panya first, because you had to learn how to practice Sila first. And let's say you practice 5 precepts. I think that's really interesting if you can practice 5 precepts without an interval. There are people who break 5 precepts and then take them again and again. When you keep practicing 5 precepts, then you will understand 5 precepts. The practice of 5 precepts is not an innovation of the Buddhist things, but it was existed even before the Buddha's time. So Buddhist practice about Sila is 10 kusala, what you call by skillful activities. So if you practice skillful activities, you are minimizing a lot of opportunities of loopholes for cheating and swindling. What are they? If you take a look at Musavada, we know Musavada to many is simply not not telling a lie, not telling lies. But when you review carefully Musavada precept, you will understand that it is not just telling a lie, because people can tell lies. It is this bigger concept, the larger, broader area of swindling people. Like, you are cheating people, you are being dishonest to you and other people. So that's the main concept of Musavada. It's not just telling a lie, right? Because there may be opportunities where you save people by telling a lie, right? So that's something interesting to think about, right? So the main thing behind Musavada is whether you are really cheating other people, whether you are really misleading other people. That's something really attached to, connected to Musavada. So now Musavada is one of the things. And what about other things like Pisuna Vacha? You can see the elements of non-integrity. And if you can take a look of other skillful activities, you can find out different elements of integrity. If you don't practice them, you are into non-integrity. That's one context of today's talk attached to clouds. The second context, we've been talking about discernment of the Four Noble Truths. So regardless of what you've been learning about Tipitaka, Sutta, Vinaya, Abhidhamma, the most important thing to all of us is whether we are able to discern Four Noble Truths. Now the thing is, a lot of people might get puzzled at what is discernment. Discernment is Vipassana. Now if I read one more time about that quotation, there is the case where a person has mastered the Dhamma, dialogues, narratives of, I would say, typical simple words, yet he or she does not discern as it actually is present, that this is dukkha, and this is the cause of the dukkha, this is the eradication of the dukkha, this is the path which leads to the eradication of dukkha. So if anyone does not try to understand the Four Noble Truths in their real entire explanation, although that person is reading a lot of Dhamma books, listening to a lot of Dhamma talks, it will not benefit that person. But the reason is, the most important thing is trying to be able to discern, practice Vipassana, so that you can see the Four Noble Truths really well in its entirety. What is Vipassana? I did a talk about Vipassana a couple of months ago, I think. Vipassana basically means being able to see things as they are. Now, behind me is the Buddha statue. I'm trying to see the Buddha as it is, which is made of marble, I think, right? But I'm not trying to look at the Buddha with other Buddha statues. And there's another Buddha statue behind this Buddha statue. I'm not trying to compare that Buddha statue with this Buddha statue, or this Buddha statue with that Buddha statue, which is behind that Buddha statue. I'm trying to see this Buddha statue in an objective sense. So I am not trying to use my subjective understanding about Buddha Saju. I'm trying to be very objective towards that particular thing. In the same way, when things happen to us, let's say when something bad happens to me, when something bad happens to you, try to think about that incident from an objective perspective. Don't try to look at that incident from a subjective way. What is the subjective way of looking at it? If you see things as you are, without seeing things as they are, then you are not practicing Vipassana. Vipassana basically means trying to use your objective perspective, trying to use your objective understanding about particular phenomena. That is Vipassana. But a lot of people in the society, they practice non-Vipassana, I would say subjective understanding about phenomena. So they get stuck. They won't be able to practice Vipassana. The more you practice Vipassana, which means you are trying to see things as they are, then you are able to see dukkha. You are able to see the cause of the dukkha, dukkha samudaya. You are able to see the eradication of the dukkha. That means the dukkha nirodha satcha. And then you are also able to see dukkha nirodha gamini patipada satcha, the path which leads to the eradication of nibbana. So Vipassana and Panya is the overall knowledge you are having after discerning. They are, they go in tandem. They go together. So that's why I'm asking you, it doesn't matter you read Dhamma, but you should put your focus, you have to emphasize your learning practice on discernment. I would say Vipassana practice. If you merely read a lot of Dhamma without an emphasis of Vipassana, I don't think you are getting the full benefits of your Dhamma learning. So, which is a pretty big deal for you, right? Because the other issue is that everyone's Dhamma journey is different. Some people may have started their Dhamma journey from cultures. Like people like in here, Western people, they may have started without a culture because they might have experienced something really tough in their life. So they look beyond the science, they look beyond the Western perspective, and they want to understand the Four Noble Truths and so on and so forth. So, and when it comes to some other people, even though they are cultural, but they also want to go beyond, like people who are always watching some Dhamma talks here. So try to find the best meaning to your Dhamma path, Dhamma practice. That is, read the Dhamma. Especially you need to read Sutta and Abhidhamma also, because Abhidhamma is the real, precise Dhamma. When people talk about suttas, speakers, if you can take a look at our 5 speakers, the suttas that they talk about are different. I mean, even the same sutta will be explained in different ways. But when they talk about Abhidhamma, they can't talk different things. They talk the right, precise. They must talk about. Otherwise, they get failed in that practice. That's why I'm saying, while reading, while listening to sutta, try to learn some Abhidhamma too. With these 2 practices, the most important thing that you have to practice at the same time, simultaneously, is Vipassana. That will take you to Panya very easily. Okay, any questions for today's discussion? We've been talking about 4 clouds. These 4 clouds reflect 8 people. The first context, there were 4 people. In the second context, there were 4 people. In the first context, there were people like somebody who talks a lot, but there's no action, right? And there was a person who acts upon things, but there's no incidental speech. And there was a person, third person, we talked by a person who neither talks nor acting upon stuff. The fourth person is somebody who is talking plus acting upon the things that person is talking about. In the second context, we talk about the same 4 clouds. In that, we talk about people who learn a lot of Dhamma, but there's no practicing of Vipassana, what you call discernment of the Four Noble Truths. The second person is somebody who practices Vipassana or discerning the Four Noble Truths, but there's no learning in that person. The third person is neither practicing Dhamma, Tipitaka, no practicing of Vipassana. The fourth person is somebody who is both learning the Tipitaka, Sutta Vinaya, Abhidhamma, also practicing the Vipassana, which is called by discernment of the Four Noble Truths. Okay, I think there are no more questions, so let's close the discussion by sharing good karmas with the departed relatives and the deities. May all the good karmas we've been collecting so far be shared by all the departed relatives who passed away in the name of all of us. May they be happy and peaceful. May they attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Idam me ñāti nang hotu sukita huntu ñātayo. Idam me ñāti nang hotu sukita huntu ñātayo. Idam me ñāti nang hotu sukita huntu ñātayo. Also, let's share all the good karmas with the devas and the nagas who protect all of us. May all the devas and nagas share in all these good karmas. May they be happy and peaceful. May they also attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Ittavata cha ammehi sambatang punya sampadang. Sabbe deva anumodantu, sabbe bhuta anumodantu, sabbe satta anumodantu, sabba sampatti sindhya. Akasattha cha bhummattha devanaga mahindika, punyantang anumoditva, chirang rakkhantu lokasasanang, chirang rakkhantu desanang, chirang rakkhantu mang paranti. Finally, let's make a great wish. May all the good karmas we've been accumulating so far be helpful for all of us to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Abhivadana silis nichang baddha pachayino chattaru dhamma baddhanti ayuvanu sukhang balang ayurarogya sampatti sagga sampatti mevacha ato nibbana sampatti iminate saminchatu. And I have an announcement for all of you. Abhidhamma for Daily Life discussion series, which is under Dhamma Pariyasana, is continuing. And in this Wednesday's talk, I will be talking about the Chitta Viti, cognitive process. Right? There are almost like 75 Chitta Vitis, and I will be getting into those and then talking this Chitta Viti in a very simple, easy way to understand, and how they work in your cognitive process, cognition. Okay, so please join this Wednesday at 9 a.m. from Ottawa, Canada time, and I think from Malaysia it's going to be 9 p.m. at night. From Sri Lanka it's 6:30 from Colombo time, and other people, I would say, they can manage their time on YouTube. Okay, thank you. Have a good night. Take care. Be safe.